Under threatening skies, play in the final round of the 1979 Labatt'S International Golf Classic at the National Golf Club in Woodbridge, Ontario is well underway. And Canadian Open champion Lee Trevino is the leader. He is 2 over par. He is 1 stroke ahead of Peter Townsend and defending champion Lanny Watkins. Tom Watson, the year's leading money winner, trails by 4. Dan Halderson is the leading Canadian at 8 over.
This is part of our bonus coverage here at the National side of the Labatt'S. Lee Trevino, our tournament leader by 1 shot. And on the 9th hole, par 4, Trevino has found the bunker.
Just a few moments ago, this was the 2nd shot of Lee Trevino. Pardon me, that put him into that bunker. And there you see his beautiful recovery. Magical touch around the greens. Trevino bogeyed the 1st hole, but birdied the 8th hole. So he's back to where he started at 2 over par. At that stage
remains at +8 through 9 holes of play in the final round.
And Lee Trevino, who you would probably favor as the great wind player, is certainly bearing out forecasts that he might prevail on the final day, but the breeze here has dropped quite considerably in the last half hour or so. Not as tough as it was a little while back.
Trevino for par. No doubt about it. The moment it left the blade of his putter, you just knew that was in the hole. Lee Trevino is the leader at this stage of the final round of Labatt'S International Golf Classic. He has a 1-shot lead over Peter Townsend and Lanny Watkins.
Up to the tee and the final trio of the day in this fascinating character of Mexican origin, although actually a Native American, Lee Trevino. Possibly the greatest manipulator of the ball, wouldn't you say, Stan, in the top class?
Well, when we're talking about playing in wind, I don't think this man has any superior. I think that keeping the ball in play is just, well, he just does it so well.
Probably a 7-iron, I would think, and safely in the center of the green.
Playing with Lee. Well, on the practice tee this morning, we had a chance to talk to Lee Trevino, and Trevino, as always, was in excellent form.
My thoughts are, I hope it rains, because I read the brochure before we started, and it said if it was a rain out, it's going to complete at 54 holes. So we wouldn't have to play today. But tough golf course. It's really a toughie. But I said that, in other words, back in July, and I think that the scores show that this golf course is much tougher than Glen Abbey. It's, you know, you have to not only hit... Glen Abbey is a type of golf course that you have to hit sharp iron shots with it, not this golf course. This golf course, you have to hit good drives, good iron shots, and then you don't necessarily, even though you're maybe 6-8 feet away from the hole, it's really not a cinch that you're going to even 2-putt, in other words, because of the undulation in the greens and the quickness of them. But it's nice to be back. The Mexicans seem to have a hell of a time in Canada, regardless of their amateurs or pros. So you never know, you know. Maybe Mr. Clark will give me a citizenship. I don't know. Like to have one.
The thoughts of Lee Trevino at this stage in the final round of the Labatt'S International Golf Classic here at National. Lee Trevino is the leader.
And the Tournament Players Championship this year, which I was involved in the coverage of, and of course, when he gets going, there's no holding him. And just as certainly, when he gets out of sorts, he gets very irritable.
Exactly. Well, he's a tremendous driver of the golf ball and, of course, one of the great putters.
This is Lee Trevino, our tournament leader, at +2, and this is for birdie.
Good-looking putt. Well, he gave it a go. So he still leads by 1 from Lanny Watkins.
Trevino taps in and remains hourly.
And now a marvelous bonus view of that's Lee Trevino. I'm sure no one could mistake that swing. That's his second shot at the 14th hole, a par 4 of 421 yards. What a glorious golf shot.
Lee Trevino, of course, our tournament leader right now at +1. Lanny Watkins should be away with his second shot on this par 4 14th.
And with that $75 putter that he annexed in the Canadian Open, of course, and proceeded to win, that putter is more than paid for itself.
I'll say. He has it. Well, well. Now that's back to even par to Lee Trevino. And it looks as if the leader may be the only player to match par for the championship, or perhaps even break it.
And Ben, I loved his remark earlier in the day when he said, if Mr. Joe Clark is listening, I would like to take out citizenship or be given the right to come and live in Canada.
Stan, he was alluding to the fact that Canada has been very good to Mexican golfers, and of course referring to the fact that Rafael Alarcon a couple of weeks ago.
Tommy have designed here on this incredibly difficult golf course, and our leader, Lee Trevino.
Now hit it fast. Get up, ball. Get up, baby.
Trevino thought he might have hit it fat, but he's on the putting surface anyway, and we'll have another run at birdie. Par 3, and awaiting the putts of Lee Trevino, Lanny Watkins, and Dan Halderson. Lee Trevino hit the green with his tee shot, but is a long way from the hole. The pin today cut on the right side of the green, just in front of a large and gaping bunker that Trevino wanted no part of, and I suspect Ben right at this stage in the game, the strategy, the thinking of Lee Trevino is just simply hit the greens.
I quite agree with you, Steve. It's all he has to do now, isn't it? Really par in and see if Watkins can do anything about it. And then if Watkins does do something about it, then he can pull out the stops himself.
Lee Trevino for birdie on the 15th. He's at even par. This will put him under. He had the speed, but not the line. If Trevino can keep playing the way he's been playing through 15 holes, he could pick up the double. Canadian Open winner Glen Abbey earlier this summer, and he can add the ball fell off on the left of the hole, so Halderson will have to settle for par. But right now, this is Lee Trevino doing a little groundskeeping. Trevino, our leader, at even par, needs us to salvage a 3 at the 15th and retain his 3-shot lead with only 16, 17, and 18 to play. Trevino now tapping in for bogey, so Trevino goes back to +1 and now has a 2-shot lead.
Lee Trevino, the leader of this Labatt'S International Golf Classic. He has a 2-stroke lead on defending champion Lanny Watkins. Jim Nelford sharing 3rd place with Tom Watson in difficulty on the 17th hole. He has placed his 2nd shot in the bunker below the green.
Now, this is our leader, Lee Trevino, who has just hit his tee shot on the par 4 16th, 384 yards. We've been telling you a fairly easy hole, certainly off the tee, straight away. But the trouble comes when you have to
Improved tremendously, he is.
That was Stan Leonard talking about Dan Halderson, and that was Lee Trevino playing his 2nd shot at the 16th, and he's giving himself problems. Touch and expertise around the green now, because if he drops another shot here, And Lanny Watkins would love that to happen, because Lanny's the kind of player who just jumps in and stabs you if he gets the least opportunity. So this one is a very vital shot for Lee after that rather prodigal 3 putts to 15th.
He knows he has to make 4, Ben.
And he's got his work cut out to do it, Stan. A sizable putt side hill with a big right to left break coming up.
Well, he could be a little shook up right about now. If Lanny Watkins can make this birdie putt, then of course that's going to move that ball of Lee's a little further from the hole.
Well, this is really a must putt for Lee Trevino, and he'll stalk it from every angle. He usually describes a full circle when lining up his putts. Really has to get this one in, or it's going to be a very difficult final 2 holes for him. Big right to left break. This for par to remain 2 ahead of Lanny Watkins. Oh, super.
You think he might be breathing a little easier right about now, Ben?
The 18th tee, the tournament leader, Lee Trevino, is preparing for his second shot on the 17th fairway. 1 over par. The wind has been rather difficult at times today. It has increased in velocity and then died off, and once again it appears to have died down. Fine second shot by Lee Trevino. I understand that Trevino played a 5-iron second on this 17th hole, and I'm sure that he used that 5-iron stand to try and avoid the difficulties the wind would present if the ball was up too high.
That's right. Well, now, I have not seen anybody use their legs any nicer than this Lee Trevino as he works through the shot, working to his left side very strongly, almost holding out. But, Don, I would have to think that he probably used his rear
over Lanny Watkins. He's 4 in front of Jim Nelford, who has finished, and Tom Watson, who is on the 18th tee. Lanny Watkins today, he had parred the preceding 16 holes.
Don, that is a tremendous feat on this kind of a golf course. It's just such terribly, and there are no easy holes. There are very, very few pickup holes, and to go through the first 15 holes, 16 holes without a bogey, that's a tremendous feat.
Trevino now could really clinch it here with a birdie putt on 17. Well, that ball really took a sharp break just at the finish, and Trevino, putting from above the hole, slid past the cup by a couple of feet. 17, a bogey 5. He is 11 over, and Lee Trevino with this putt for a par 4 on 17. And he heads to, as we move from the green back to the 18th tee, the view of the lake from the elevated tee, and then back up to an elevated green. Lee Trevino, the tournament leader. Unless disaster really strikes this man on this 441-yard hole, he will win his second championship in Canada in the space of a couple of months, capturing the Canadian Open at Glen Abbey. And he puts the ball dead center, and Lee, you have reason to smile.
Don, I would like to add that I think this 18th hole is just
himself, and that is worth $7,700. Jim Nelford, who shared third spot, drops back to fourth. That's worth $5,800. And $20,000 in the Labatt'S Gold Cup will be going to this man, Lee Trevino. His second shot on the 18th into the bunker. He is in the bunker on the left-hand side. But I don't imagine that Lee is at all concerned, Stan.
I don't think he is. Lanny Watkins has got a very, very difficult second shot. He's in this trap, and if he can get the ball up on the green from there, he's made one magnificent shot. So I don't think that Lee is too upset.
Really, Stan, he didn't have any shot at all.
Well, you're absolutely right. Now, if you give these boys a good lie in a sand trap with the technique that they have, chances are that they're going to be able to get up and down most times. But when you've got it buried like he had, forget it.
Now, talking about getting it up and down, this man can do it very, very well out of the sand. And there's an example.
Well, he could go in there and close both eyes, I'm sure, and just draw the club back and come up with a one putt. Of course, when you have a 3-shot lead, that doesn't hurt also.
No, you can be very relaxed as you wander off into the sand trap on the 18th hole. 3-stroke advantage. And they may have to take a rather close look to see which player is away in terms of putting order on this 18th hole.
Well, I think it's very safe to say.
One and back-to-back 72s. Trevino pausing momentarily, and a remark from someone in the gallery has produced a smile on the master of the one-liners.
I think somebody said that's good, Lee.
It's good now as Lee Trevino comes up with a par 4 on 18. And Lee Trevino finishes at 1 over par for the tournament with a 1 under par 70 in this, the final round over the national layout at Woodbridge, Ontario. Lee Trevino, the Canadian Open champion, and now the 1979 Labatt'S International Golf Classic champion. And the man who won it a year ago in the pink shirt, signing his scorecard in the presence of Dave Zink. That's Lanny Watkins. Lee Trevino applying his signature to the scorecard. Of course, it's not official until he officially endorses that card.
Well, Don, that is one of the absolute musts, is to check the card, and before you sign it, you've got to check it and make good and sure that it is word for word, just as you played it.
And play it well today indeed, did Lee Trevino. And I think the conditions today were particularly well suited to Trevino's game. He likes to play in the wind.
No question about that, Don. And I think that the golf course eased up just a little bit today. We had that overnight rain, and they did water fairly heavily, so that the ball was holding on the greens, and I would think that the boys are getting a little bit more used to the golf course. Consequently, we did have a few scores today that were par or under, so you can only fool these fellas just for so long.
The presentation ceremonies will be taking place on the 18th green. I think the club members might have some difficulties tomorrow playing on this 18th green, because a lot of people are walking around the putting surface.
They're going to all go out there tomorrow and say, hey, I don't see anything too tough about this golf course, but it is proven that it's one of the real tough golf courses in all of the world. I think that Glen Abbey is a difficult course, but I would have to say the way this course was set up the last 4 days, it would have to be the most difficult course these fellows have played in Canada.
$20,000 will go to the winner, Lee Trevino, along with the Labatt'S Gold Cup. $11,800 to the runner-up this year, Lanny Watkins, the man who engraved his name on the trophy last year at Shaughnessy in Vancouver. And then Tom Watson with that sand shot on the 18th hole, picking up third prize of $7,700. And Jimmy Nelford emerges as the top Canadian. Nelford with a fine finishing round today for $5,800. The presentation ceremony, as I mentioned, will take place on the 18th green. And for Jimmy Nelford, with that low Canadian performance, not only does he pick up a sizable check from this tournament, he will also receive 2 tickets anywhere that CP Air flies, plus $2,000 with which to spend on that journey from the sponsors of this tournament, Labatt'S. And he'll also, of course, represent Canada in the World Cup to take place in Athens. Well, Lee Trevino is the victor, and standing down to chat with him, Ben Wright.
Lee, congratulations for the second time in very few months.
Thank you, Ben. It's a great feeling. I thought that I could have probably shot an over par today and won, but I played quite well today. It rained a little bit last night, softened up the course a little bit, was able to hit iron shots, in other words, at the flag, but I didn't know exactly what kind of day it was going to be, because I hit a 5-wood off the first hole and a 9-iron in there, no, a wedge, and I was in a divot, and I 3-putted. I mean, I hit the first putt I hit, I couldn't get it within 20 feet of the hole. I mean, I played it wrong, And then I go to the second hole and drove it down the middle, and I'm in another divot. So I says, uh-oh, it's going to be a long day. But I almost held it on the 8th hole, made birdie. And then from there, I made some, you know, I just hit the ball well on the way in.
And then it really came down to you and Lanny, really.
It was a big turning point for me was on the 16th when I had just finished 3-putting the 15th hole, and I left it short of the green in that hill, short of the green on the 16th hole. Didn't really hit a great chip shot, but I didn't want to get above the hole.